Today's community focus, October is Dyslexia Awareness Month. So what should you know when it comes to helping your child learn to read? Dr. Emily Oster of Brown University and Parent Data joins us now. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So according to the International Dyslexia Association, 1 in 10 people has dyslexia. So with that in mind, what does the data show is the most effective way to teach our kids to learn to read?
It's a great question, and we've been discussing it both in dyslexia, but then also more broadly. And the data has become very clear that the best way for kids to learn to read is through something with phonics. So kids really need to learn to understand that sounds correspond to letters, that they go together into words. And that there's been an increasing focus on that in teaching, which is good and is part of the way we're going to get everybody to learn to read rather than only some kids.
And I know we've sort of ebbed and flowed in the ways that we teach our kids how to read, but it seems like phonics is where we're headed right now.
Yeah, so one of the things is that for adults, when you read, you perceive yourself as just recognizing the words, but actually that's not true. For words longer than about 8 letters, you are actually sounding them out in your head. We know that from brain scans. And so that's another way to see why it's so important for kids to learn that skill, because in fact, that is the skill that you're learning, even when it seems like you recognize it.
And of course, we're told all the time as parents, it's important to read aloud to your children. When should our children start to be able to put those things together and start reading aloud to us?
So kids vary. It's really hard to teach kids to read before the age of about 4, and many kids will not read fluently until the 1st or 2nd grade, which is totally normal. Some kids in the age of 3 will start to kind of put things together, and younger kids can recognize words. They can say, oh, I know that word looks like cat, but that's not really reading. So it's a process.
And when should we be concerned if our kid is maybe falling behind? At what age should we say we need some intervention with getting them help?
Usually by the end of 1st grade, kids should be starting to have a reasonable sense of reading, because as they get towards 3rd grade, then they're going to need to be reading to learn rather than learning to read. So that's a point at which it's worth talking to the school about what they're seeing.
And I wanted to talk to you about some other topics that we've covered recently here on 12 News at 4. We learned that peanut allergies are declining because of earlier exposure to peanuts, exposing babies to peanuts. What does the data tell us about how effective this is?
This is such an exciting change, because for a long time people were told not to give their kids peanuts early. We then got some evidence that giving kids peanuts early lowers the rates of allergy, and potentially by an enormous amount. And we're now seeing that advice happen in the real world with sizable, 40% reductions in peanut allergies, even over a period of quite a small number of years. And so we can expect to keep seeing that. So this is just like science wins. That's it. Science wins is the headline.
And just quickly before I let you go, we also reported recently on a study that shows kids are spending less time outside. They're playing more inside. They're spending more time on screens. What does the data show us about how important it is to get outside when you're a child?
It is very important to get outside. We see it for getting outside at school, like in recess, and for getting outside in general. And I think that for parents, this can be hard because sometimes outside seems a little scary. Like, my kids could be away, I'm not gonna be able to see them. But I think it's really important to remember, like, maybe it's a little scary, but it's also really beneficial, and it's actually worth that cost-benefit trade-off for kids to just be in the backyard, even be out with their friends in the front yard.
The benefit outweighs the risk. All right,
Exactly.
Dr. Emily Oster, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.